VC, what's up, guys? I'm back on here doing Blue Note 4110 Tokyo Blues, the Horace Silver Quintet. This is actually my original copy when I started collecting Horace Silver. This was one of the first Horace Silvers I found by digging some years back. I ended up finding this mono for real cheap, and it's a really good copy. Not noisy, it's real clean. And then I found a beautiful stereo original copy also. But Horace Silver, Tokyo Blues, released in 1962. Definitely a quintet. Not complete like his original band that he had on Horoscope. His one missing, and it's Roy Brooks. Roy Brooks was ill when he recorded this album. And even on the tour of the late 1961 when he visited Japan. So when Horace Silver visited Japan, he had a big influence on the Japanese culture, the sound. They actually loved the way when he first came out with Art Blakey, they loved his playing. So as a tribute, he went in the studio and did this album. Well, since Roy Brooks was ill, he was the original quintet player on the drums. They had auditions, which ended up he got John Harris. John Harris Jr. was a great fit for this album. Still a classic. A lot of people, for some reason, I don't know why. This one, I believe, is one of his tops. I will put this in the top 4. But definitely Horace was blazing the jazz trail, hard bop. I would consider him the hard bop master. And as a tribute, he does this album, and you would think it'll have a Japanese type feel because he had Tokyo Blues, the title. It doesn't. It has a Latin feel, Latin jazz. Only one song on here that has that will be the title track. You could hear a little bit of the Japanese in there mixed with the Latin. But yes, he settled on John Harris. John Harris is a killer player. He fit the mold. He was a great replacement for Roy Brooks during his illness. He has like more of a Art Blakey. You could tell he influenced by Art Blakey. He has the chops, and I believe that's why Horace Silver got him because he loved it. He was a great fit. So the first track on here, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 songs. 4 of them Art Blakey composed. One of them was Ronald Bright, and that's the Cherry Blossom. But Too Much Sake, which was influenced by when he had this little cab ride. He had his little cab ride back to the hotel, getting ready, when they're getting ready to leave and head on back to the States after his tour in Japan. Sold out shows. He drank the sake and he said, man, this stuff ain't doing nothing. And then all of a sudden, it gave him, it really kicked in. He was hanging out with some of the Japanese players of the time, Hideo Shiraki. He's a legendary drummer. He played on a lot of the jazz stuff over there in Japan. So that's the one he was hanging out drinking sake with, and he thought the sake wasn't gonna do nothing. He said, oh, this stuff is weak. It knocked him out. So, that was definitely one influence. And then he had the Sayonara Blues. That's like your bye-bye in Japan. He added that on there. That had it all had that Latin feel, a classic. This is going to be a great record. And then Tokyo Blues, the title track, man, that's another marvel. It's all straight hard bop, drumming, solos. Blue Mitchell, to me, is one of the most underrated trumpet players. His tone, he could just display his, you know, his outlook. He could be Kenny Durham. I mean, all of those guys wrapped into one. You could tell that he listened to a lot of different stuff. And then Junior Cook, which has that Mobley type flow, like those early Mobley albums. You could tell that he listened to a little Mobley because he got a lot of his flows and the way he plays the sax. And then it goes into Cherry Blossom, a ballad. And what you call it really stretches out on this. Horace Silver just plays, and you could tell that he was in a zone. Band was right behind him. It's like they sat back and the piano playing. You could see that Horace putting out all these albums, how great he got, how good, you know, his emphasizing got a lot of, man, a lot of people raved about it. And I think by this album, a lot of people really was digging, you know, Horace Silver put out a lot of great albums. But yeah, at this right here was the plateau. You know, you need an album like this because it leads on to the great album, Song for the Father. It's another one. You know, that shows that, you know he's going to be a classic player. But yeah, and he put this album out as a dedication to Japan, and this flew off the shelves. This was like a top runner for the, you know, this was every time he come back to Japan, he's like the almighty, you know, as far as jazz player. That's why I think his stuff always sells. He's always got a great place in Japan. And then the closer, Ah So, which is complex chording, a lot of interplay, drumming, and it's just like an awesome closer. And then you have the photo. Reed Miles wanted to do a different type of photo, but he sat down with Horace Silver and they asked him what would be, since he knew this was a tribute to Japan, he said, what would you do? Let me get two geishas. The one on the right is the daughter of a petroleum, one of the top petroleum heirs in Japan. And then the one on the left was a student. So Reed Miles said, we'll go with that picture. And you know, for that time in '62, this was very cultural. This was ahead of the game. That's what I always loved about the Blue Note covers, man. They always have some cool, everything is so different, dynamic. But yes, Tokyo Blues, classic Horace Silver. I recommend anybody checking this out. Definitely get it. They did reissue this on a 45 RPM Analog Productions. I've never seen it, but that's another one. That's another nice one. I would love to hear that version. Even though I have originals, I love the audiophile pressings too. I dig those audiophile pressings. So I don't have nothing against that. I like originals, but then I like audiophiles too. So it's either or. Just to have the record is what counts. But yes, 4110, Tokyo Blues, Horace Silver. Definitely. Peace out, guys.